My name is Tamsin Velour, and by the time this story ends, you'll understand why I no longer flinch at the word betrayal. But in the beginning, before the lies, before the humiliation, before the day everything cracked open, I was still the soft version of myself, the version who believed that love was sincere, that promises meant something, and that people didn't look at my family's vineyard and see a dollar sign. It was early summer in Napa Valley, the kind of warm morning where the fog hangs low over the vines like a secret. My parents were preparing paperwork for our vineyard expansion, something we'd been working toward for years, and I was preparing for my wedding. Or what I thought was a wedding. My fiancé, Caden Marlowe, was charming in that glossy, I know I'm handsome kind of way. The kind of man who smiled with perfect timing, the kind who made you feel chosen. For a while, I was proud of that. I thought I'd found someone who loved me, not for the Velour name, not for the vineyard, not for the future it held. I was wrong. I remember the exact moment everything shifted. It was a Friday evening, golden hour spilling across the tasting room as I checked invoices behind the counter. Caden thought I'd gone home early, so when he walked in with his phone pressed to his ear, he didn't bother to lower his voice. I wish I could say I wasn't eavesdropping, but when the man you're supposed to marry sounds tense, urgent, almost annoyed, you listen. "No, I haven't gotten the expansion plans yet," he said. A pause. "Yes, I'm working on it. Her family trusts me. Once I get a copy, we can move forward." My chest tightened. I froze, my fingertips resting on a stack of wine labels that suddenly felt like sandpaper. Maybe he meant something else. Maybe I was overthinking. Maybe. Then he said it. "Relax. The proposal did its job. She's emotionally invested. It's only a matter of time before I get her parents to loop me into the partnership." The glass display behind me blurred as heat flushed over my skin. My ears rang. My heart dropped straight through the floor. The proposal did its job. Those words punched a hole through everything I believed about us. Every kiss, every late-night conversation, every promise about our future. I stepped back too fast, knocking into a shelf. A bottle rattled but didn't fall. Still, the sound was enough. Caden whipped around. "Tamsin? Babe? Hey, I thought you left." His voice was warm. Too warm. Sticky like syrup over poison. I forced my breathing to slow. Forced my face to stay neutral even while my insides crumbled. "Didn't mean to interrupt," I said softly. He slipped his phone into his pocket so quickly it was almost comedic. "Just talking to my business partner. Nothing important." Lies. Cheap, clumsy lies. But I didn't confront him. Not then. Not when it would have been easiest. Because even though my heart was shattered, something colder was forming beneath the pieces. Something sharper. He kissed my forehead. "Big day tomorrow, huh? Tasting menu planning with your parents?" "Yeah," I said. "Big day." He left the tasting room humming like a man who had already won. As soon as the door closed, I sank into one of the wooden stools and stared out at the vineyard I loved more than anything. My childhood was in those grapes. My parents' sweat and dreams were in the soil. And I'd almost handed it all to someone who thought I was a stepping stone. Tears gathered but didn't fall. I wasn't the crying type. Not anymore. Instead, I whispered the only thing I could think. "I will not let you take this from me." That night, I couldn't sleep. Every memory replayed differently. His sweet gestures now looked rehearsed. His interest in vineyard operations, questions I'd once found endearing, now felt like an interrogation. I realized he'd been positioning himself from the start, but heartbreak wasn't the strongest emotion running through me. It was humiliation. The kind that crawls under your skin and makes you feel stupid for trusting someone who didn't deserve it. By 3 a.m., I'd made my decision. I wasn't going to confront him. I wasn't going to cry. And I sure as hell wasn't going to let him stroll into a partnership meeting and leverage my family's legacy. No, I was going to make him choke on his own ambition. The next morning, while my parents prepared documents for an upcoming investor presentation, I asked casually, "Mind if I make a copy for my files?" My mom smiled. "Of course, honey." They trusted me without hesitation, unlike the man I was planning to marry. I scanned everything, every chart, projection, acreage analysis. And then I started creating decoys, fake maps, fabricated projections, harvest estimates so unrealistic any expert would laugh. Each document looked polished, professional, believable, but they were worthless. I tucked the real files away safely. The decoys? Those were for Caden. As the printer hummed, my pulse quickened, not from fear, but purpose. This wasn't just revenge. This was self-defense. This was reclaiming my dignity. By evening, when Caden texted me sweet nothings and planned our weekend brunch as if nothing had happened, I stared at my screen with a new clarity. He thought he'd fooled me. He thought he'd already won. He thought I was naive. But I had something he didn't: time, information, and access to every document he was desperately trying to steal. The perfect storm. At midnight, I slipped the decoy plans into a folder labeled Confidential Vineyard Expansion. I placed it neatly in the office drawer he always pretended not to snoop through. Then I whispered, "Come and get it, Caden." The trap was set. Now I just had to wait. And the moment he opened that drawer, everything would begin. Caden took the bait faster than I expected. The next morning, sunlight spilled across the vineyard like warm honey. I was in the kitchen pouring coffee when I heard the familiar creak of the office door down the hallway. My parents were outside speaking with the vineyard foreman, so the house was quiet. Too quiet. Then came the second sound, the soft slide of the desk drawer. My pulse jumped. I didn't move, didn't breathe. I just stood there with my coffee cup halfway to my lips, listening as the seconds stretched thin. A faint rustle of paper, a low, satisfied exhale, and then the click of the drawer closing. He had found it. Caden strolled into the kitchen with that well-practiced smile, the one I used to love, the one that now felt like a mask stretched over deceit. "Morning, babe," he said, leaning down to kiss my cheek. I pulled away just slightly, not enough to raise suspicion, but enough to reclaim space. "Morning." He gave me a look, half curious, half calculating, then glanced casually toward the hallway. "Your parents around?" "Outside," I said. He nodded. "Good. I, I need to head out for a quick meeting. Business stuff. I'll be back for lunch." "Business stuff, right?" "Okay," I said lightly. "Drive safe." He kissed me again, this time a bit too confidently, and walked out the door like a man carrying a secret trophy. As soon as his car disappeared down the gravel road, I exhaled for the first time in minutes. He had taken the decoys. Phase 1, complete. But revenge isn't a single moment. It's a sequence, a rhythm, a slow tightening of the rope. And I had just given it a good, hard pull. Later that afternoon, while I was trimming the new vines along the west slope, my phone buzzed. "Caden, meeting is going great. Might be a big step for us. I'll tell you everything later." I stared at the message until my hands started to shake, not from fear but adrenaline. He wasn't just falling into the trap, he was sprinting. The big step he mentioned? He meant the partnership pitch. The pitch he thought he could lead. The pitch he thought my family would support. The pitch he believed would cement his place in the vineyard's future. I felt almost sorry for him. Almost. That evening, Caden returned home wearing his confidence like cologne. Strong, overwhelming, impossible to ignore. He wrapped his arms around me from behind while I was slicing peaches for a sangria mix. "You are looking at a man with some very promising connections," he murmured. I forced a smile. "Oh yeah? I think your parents are going to be impressed when they see what I've been working on." My stomach churned. Not from guilt, because I didn't feel guilty at all, but from the sheer audacity in his voice. He wasn't ashamed. He wasn't conflicted. He wasn't even pretending to hide his ambition anymore. He thought he already owned the future of Velour Vineyards. "So," he said, spinning me to face him, "we should go to that investor dinner tomorrow. Your parents will be there, right?" "Yes," I said, clipped, Controlled. He didn't notice. Perfect, he grinned. I'll bring my materials. I almost laughed. He meant the decoy plans. The ones that would turn him into a fool in front of industry leaders. The ones that would expose his motives without me saying a single word. The ones that would burn the bridge he tried to build using my heart. Sounds good, I said, stepping away to pour the sangria. Inside, my thoughts whispered like wildfire. Just a little longer, Tamsin. Let him dig his own grave. Night fell, warm and heavy. My parents sat on the porch enjoying their drinks, the sky painted with streaks of orange and lavender. I joined them, needing a moment of grounding. My father glanced at me. You okay, sweetheart? You've been quiet today. I hesitated. The truth pressed against my tongue. But not yet. Not until everything unfolded. I'm fine, I said gently. Just tired. My mom reached over and squeezed my hand. Big wedding coming up. It's normal to feel overwhelmed. If only she knew. I leaned against the porch railing, watching the silhouettes of our vines swaying in the twilight. They were steady, rooted. They'd weathered storms far worse than a manipulative man. And so would I. At midnight, when the house was dark and silent, I stepped into the office and opened the drawer where Caden had stolen the documents. Empty. He had taken every page. Good. I closed the drawer slowly, savoring the silence, because soon, silence would turn into chaos. The next day would be the beginning of his unraveling. But something unexpected happened the following morning. I was walking through the tasting room when I overheard Caden talking again. This time outside, pacing near the old oak tree with his phone to his ear. Listen, the projections are solid, he said. I'm telling you, once her family sees these numbers, they'll push the expansion through immediately. My jaw tightened. He wasn't nervous. He wasn't cautious. He was confident. Too confident. Then his tone shifted, lower, colder. No, she has no idea. She's in love with me. She'll support anything I present. My fingertips curled into a fist. He paused, listening. Then he said something that sliced straight through me. And if she gets in the way, I'll handle it. Handle it. Handle me. Like I was an obstacle, not a partner, not a fiancé. An obstacle. A tool. A pawn. A means to an end. The humiliation from before returned. Hotter, sharper. But now it carried something new. Resolve. Not just the desire for revenge, but the absolute certainty he deserved it. I stepped back quietly before he could see me, my heartbeat thudding in my ears. Tomorrow would be the investor dinner. Tomorrow, Caden would walk into that room believing he had already won. Tomorrow, everything would break open. But tonight? Tonight, I whispered into the dim glow of the vineyard. You said you'd handle me, Caden? We'll see about that. Because the next 24 hours would change everything. And he had no idea. The day of the investor dinner arrived with a heat that felt almost symbolic. Heavy, simmering, waiting to erupt. Napa summers had always been warm, but that afternoon the sun burned with a kind of intensity that made everything sharper. Every sound, every breath, every thought. Inside, my nerves pulsed like an electric wire. Because tonight wasn't just any dinner. Tonight was the night Caden planned to make his grand move. Tonight was the night he would present the expansion plans he stole. The fake ones. The utterly disastrous, laughably incorrect, reputation-destroying ones. I stood in front of my mirror adjusting my dress, a simple burgundy slip that matched the vineyard's theme. My hair fell in soft waves, but my expression was harder than ever, no trace of the woman who once believed in fairy tale proposals and soft-spoken promises. I wasn't dressing for romance tonight. I was dressing for war. Caden knocked lightly on my door. Tamsin, ready to go? His voice sounded casual, even excited, like a boy who'd rehearsed for a performance he believed he would ace. The thought almost made me smile. Coming, I said. When I opened the door, his eyes skimmed over me with an approving grin. Wow, you look incredible. Thanks. He reached for my waist, but I stepped past him before his hands touched me. He didn't notice the slight shift. He was too fixated on the leather folder tucked under his arm. The folder containing the decoy plans. My stomach tightened with anticipation. We stepped outside into the golden evening. Cars were already arriving at the Vineyard's private event hall, their headlights cutting through the dust like beams of curiosity. Investors, suppliers, press reps. Everyone who mattered was inside. Everyone who would witness Caden's downfall. The hall was breathtaking that night. Soft amber lights draped the ceiling. Wine barrels lined the walls like silent witnesses. Tables glittered with crystal glasses and burgundy linens. My parents moved through the crowd, greeting partners with warm professionalism. They had no idea what was coming, and for a moment, guilt flickered in my chest. But then Caden looped an arm around my shoulder, leaning down to whisper, "Tonight's going to change everything for us." The guilt evaporated instantly. He wasn't talking about me. He was talking about his career, about the power he thought he would gain from my family. I swallowed my anger and forced a neutral expression. "Let's take our seats." We joined the main table where my parents sat next to two major investors, the kind of industry veterans who could smell dishonesty from miles away. Caden, of course, didn't know that. A server poured wine, and conversation began flowing like the Merlot in our glasses. Caden flashed a confident smile at every opportunity, shaking hands, cracking jokes, playing the role of supportive fiancé. If I didn't know his true intentions, I might have believed him myself. Halfway through the first course, one of the investors, Mr. Braddock, leaned forward. "So, Caden," he said, adjusting his glasses, "I hear you've been working on some projections for the expansion." My parents both looked surprised. Caden straightened, pride swelling like a balloon. "Yes, actually. I've put together a comprehensive set of documents I think the board will be very interested in." My mother blinked. "You did?" "Absolutely," Caden said confidently. "I wanted to show initiative, support the family, strengthen the future of Velour Vineyards." My father smiled politely, though confusion flickered behind his eyes. "Oh? Well, we're happy to see your enthusiasm." Caden nodded, then patted the leather folder proudly. I hid my smirk behind my wineglass. "Here it comes." Mr. Braddock gestured. "Why don't you share your findings?" Caden stood smoothly, buttoning his blazer. "Of course, it would be my honor." He walked to the front of the hall, connecting his laptop to the projector. The lights dimmed slightly as the first slide illuminated the screen. The title, Velour Vineyard. Expansion, Strategic Forecast and Growth Model. Prepared by Caden Marlowe. Several heads turned, impressed. Caden cleared his throat, flashing his signature charming smile. "Thank you all for being here tonight. What I'm about to present will..." He clicked to the next slide and froze. The room fell silent. Confusion rippled across his face like a crack in porcelain. The slide showed projected grape yield 47 tons per acre. A few investors frowned. Everyone in the industry knew the typical yield was 3 to 6 tons, not 47. 47 was biologically impossible. Absurd. The kind of number only a clueless amateur, or a fraud, would present. Caden stammered, "This, that seems..." He clicked again, increasingly frantic. Next slide. Expected profit margins labeled in yen, not dollars. Another. Expansion acreage overlapping legally protected wetlands. Another. A growth chart literally shaped like a staircase. Whispers erupted across the hall. "What is this? Is he serious? This makes no sense at all." My father leaned toward my mother. "These numbers are completely wrong," my mother whispered back. "These aren't our documents." On stage, Caden's face flushed bright red. He tried to laugh it off. "There must be some sort of error. Maybe the file got mixed up." Mr. Braddock cut him off sharply. "These projections are not only incorrect, they're reckless." Another investor added, "and deeply unprofessional." My father stood abruptly. "Caden, where did you get these files?" Caden's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. I thought," Tamsin said. Every head turned to me. My heartbeat was steady, calm. This was the moment, the unraveling, the truth cracking wide open. But instead of speaking, I simply held his gaze and smiled. A small, devastating smile that told him everything. I know, I saw you. This is what you deserve. Caden stepped toward me, panic rising in his eyes. Tamsin, what did you— But before he could finish, my father spoke in a tone I'd only heard a handful of times in my life. Caden, sit down. The entire room watched him. Sweat beaded down his forehead. This wasn't just embarrassment. This was exposure. In front of everyone he wanted to impress. He had no idea how to recover. And little did he know, this was only the beginning. Because the real confrontation was still ahead. The moment when he would finally realize that I wasn't just emotional. I wasn't naive. I wasn't blind. I was done. And I was in control. As the murmurs filled the hall and Caden stood frozen under the spotlight of humiliation, he turned slowly toward me, eyes trembling, voice shaking. Tamsin, what did you do? I opened my mouth, not to comfort him, not to lie, but to deliver the first truth he'd ever hear from me without a filter. And before I could speak, the lights flickered. A gasp spread through the room. Something unexpected was about to happen. Something that would drag this dinner into chaos. And I wasn't sure if Caden would survive it. The lights flickered again. This time they didn't come back on. A wave of startled murmurs swept through the room. Forks clinked against plates. Chairs slid back. Someone laughed nervously, trying to diffuse tension, but it only made the darkness feel heavier. The only light came from the faint glow of emergency exit signs and the blue tint from Caden's laptop screen, which was still projecting nonsense numbers onto the wall. The chaos of his humiliation continued glowing in the dark. I folded my arms and stayed still as voices rose around us. What's going on? Is it a power outage? Seriously, right now? My father spoke firmly. Everyone remained calm, probably just a breaker issue. But the murmur didn't die down. If anything, it grew more agitated. Because something about the blackout felt intentional. I felt Caden's presence beside me before I saw him. Even in the dim light, I could make out the panic tightening his shoulders. Tamsin, he whispered harshly, we need to talk. Now. I slowly turned to him. We really don't. Yes, we do. He grabbed my wrist, not hard, but urgently. Something's wrong. Someone sabotaged my presentation. I raised a brow, even though he could barely see it. Sabotaged? Really? That's your theory? I'm serious, he hissed. Those numbers weren't They were exactly what you planned to present, I said, my voice low but steady. Because you didn't know what the real numbers were. Because you never cared to learn. He froze. And even in the dark, I could feel his denial cracking. Let go of me, I added sharply. He released my wrist immediately. But the blackout wasn't over. A few seconds later, another sound echoed through the hall. The hum of a generator turning on. A dull, mechanical rumble filled the air. Mr. Braddock muttered, "Backup generator." Good. But the lights didn't return. Instead, a different type of glow flickered suddenly across the wall. An image. A still frame. At first I thought it was the projector rebooting. But then audio filled the room. I knew instantly it wasn't from Caden's laptop. Because it was his voice. Crystal clear. Projected across speakers. A recording. Look, once I get her family's plans, we'll move forward. Relax. The proposal did its job. Caden went rigid. The room fell silent. Someone whispered, "Is that?" The audio continued. She's emotionally invested. Easy to influence. She expects me to be loyal. Once I'm added to the partnership, everything will fall into place. Gasps echoed across the hall. In the dim light, dozens of heads turned toward him. He was trembling, shaking so visibly it almost looked like he was cold. That recording, that's taken out of context, Caden stuttered. But the recording wasn't done. This time, the tone shifted colder, sharper, crueler. And if she gets in the way, I'll handle it. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. My father shot to his feet, fury tightening every muscle in his jaw. And every investor in that room stared at Caden like he was a predator who had wandered into their territory. I, I didn't, Tamsin, I didn't mean that. Caden's voice cracked, but he didn't look at me. He looked terrified. And I realized something important. I wasn't the one who played the recording. Someone else did. Someone who had access. Someone who knew. Someone who wanted him exposed even more publicly than I did. A spark of confusion bloomed in my chest, but it didn't matter. The truth was out now. You used me, I said quietly, stepping back from him. For my family, for the vineyard, for access. Everything you ever said to me was a lie. No, no, Tamsin, please, just let me explain. There is nothing to explain. My father's voice cut through the darkness like a blade. Get out. Caden froze. Sir, Get out! Each word landed like thunder. People stepped away from Caden instinctively, creating a clear path from the hall to the exit, as if he carried a disease no one dared to catch. He backed up slowly, breath shaking, eyes searching the room for someone to defend him. No one did. He turned to me one last time. Tamsin, you have to believe me. I was going to tell you everything. I really did love you. His voice broke. But I didn't. I don't believe a word you say, I replied, my tone cold enough to burn. Not anymore. The emergency lights finally flickered back on, illuminating his face in harsh white. He looked ruined, shattered, a man standing in the rubble of his own lies. Then he did the only thing left. He ran. He sprinted through the hall, past the stunned guests, through the exit doors, into the night. The room stayed silent for several long seconds. Then my father turned to me, his voice softer but heavy. Sweetheart, how long have you known? My throat tightened. This was the moment I'd been dreading, the moment I'd have to break my parents' hearts too. I breathed in slowly. Yesterday, I murmured. I heard him on the phone. He said he proposed just to get access to the expansion plans. I didn't want to worry you both before I had proof. My mother's eyes filled with tears. Not for Caden, for me. Oh, Tamsin! She pulled me into her arms, squeezing tight. My father joined, wrapping us both in the kind of embrace that felt like a shield. But then, the projector screen flickered. Again, no audio this time. Just a single message typed in white letters on black. You're welcome. A chill rippled down my spine. The investors murmured. My parents looked confused. And I stepped closer to the screen, staring. Because that message wasn't for anyone else. It was for me. Someone had helped expose Caden. Someone who knew more than they should. Someone who was watching. Someone who wanted me to know it. My heartbeat thudded hard against my ribs. This wasn't over. Not even close. The room slowly returned to life after the shock of the mysterious message, but everyone was rattled. Conversations were hushed, fragmented, jittery. Investors whispered in tight clusters. My parents stood close to me, protective, trying to process everything at once. But my attention stayed locked on the glowing words on the projector screen. You're welcome. Someone had intervened. Someone had helped me. Someone who wasn't afraid of choosing the loudest, most dramatic way possible. But who? Before I could think longer, Mr. Braddock approached us. Tamsin, he said carefully. This is incredibly serious. If that recording is authentic, your fiancé, former fiancé, attempted fraud and manipulation and possibly more. My father's jaw tensed. We'll handle the legal side. My mother touched my arm gently. Let's get you home, sweetheart. But I shook my head, because beneath the swirl of emotions, anger, hurt, humiliation, something colder and sharper pressed against my ribs. Curiosity. Who played that recording? Who had access? Who cared enough, or hated Caden enough, to expose him that boldly? And what did your welcome really mean? A warning? A threat? A favor? I didn't know yet, but I needed to. On the drive home, the vineyard stretched in silent rows under the moonlight. Normally it felt comforting, familiar. Tonight it felt watchful, like the vines themselves were listening. My parents sat in the front of the truck, talking quietly about damage control, public relations, investor statements, legal risks. I sat in the back seat, replaying every detail of the evening. The fake plans were mine. The humiliation? I orchestrated that. But the recording, the blackout, the dramatic reveal? Not me. When we reached the house, my father turned off the ignition and faced me. "Tomorrow, we'll meet early," he said gently. "We need to make decisions about the vineyard's next steps." I nodded. "I'll be ready." But as my parents went inside, I stayed on the porch. The night was too quiet, a quiet that wasn't peaceful, but charged. Like something else was waiting. I walked to the edge of the vineyard, past the trellis lines and the small stone path I'd walked since childhood. Then, my phone buzzed. A number I didn't recognize. No name, no area code I knew. Just a short text. "Did you like the show?" My stomach dropped. I typed back instantly. "Who is this?" 3 dots appeared, then stopped. Appeared again. Stopped. Then, someone who knows what he planned to do to you. Someone who wasn't going to let him succeed. My hands trembled. Not with fear, but with a cold, spreading alertness. "How do you know him?" I typed. The response came fast. "He's not the only one interested in your vineyard. He's just the dumbest." My breath caught. Someone else wanted access. Someone watching closely. Someone who felt comfortable inserting themselves into my life without asking. Someone who was now watching me. A chill crawled across my spine. "What do you want?" I typed. This time, the reply didn't come immediately. 10 seconds, 30, a full minute. My pulse drummed in my ears. Finally. "To help. For now. Be smart, Tamsin. Not everyone who smiles at you is harmless." My throat tightened. I typed quickly. "Stop being cryptic. Tell me who you are." The reply came fast. Too fast. "You already know enough. Good night, Tamsin. Stay alert." And then, blocked. My message failed to send. The thread vanished. I stared at the dark screen, the chill deepening. Someone knew me. Someone knew Caden. Someone knew the vineyard. And they wanted me to stay alert. For what? Or for who? When I finally went inside, my mother was waiting at the kitchen counter, worry lining her face. "You okay?" she asked softly. I hesitated. The truth pressed against my teeth. But revealing the anonymous message would only make things worse. My parents were already shaken by the betrayal, the recording, the chaos. They didn't need another threat looming over their heads. So I forced a small smile. "I'm fine," I lied. "Just tired." She hugged me, and for a moment I let myself lean into her warmth. Let myself feel the protection I'd grown up with. But when I pulled away and went to my room, the weight returned. Heavier. I sat on the edge of my bed, hands clasped, mind racing. The message wasn't random. It wasn't a prank. Whoever sent it had access. Real access. Had recordings. Had timing. And motives I didn't understand yet. But one thing I did understand. Caden's downfall wasn't the end. It was the beginning. Someone had peeled back the first layer of deceit. And I was standing at the edge of something much bigger than one manipulative fiancé. I lay back on my bed and stared at the ceiling, trying to slow my breath. But sleep didn't come. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the screen again. "You're welcome." And then the text message. "Be smart, Tamsin. Not everyone who smiles at you is harmless." A heartbeat later, my phone buzzed. A notification, but not a message. Emotion alert. From the Vineyard's West security camera. At midnight. My chest tightened. I tapped the notification, hands cold, breath shallow. And the live feed opened to show a figure standing at the edge of the vines. Not moving, not walking, just standing there, facing the house. Watching. My pulse spiked. It wasn't Caden. This person was taller, broader, still, someone else entirely. And then, the figure lifted a hand, not waving, not signaling, just raising it, as if to acknowledge me, as if they knew I was watching, as if to say, "I'm here." The screen froze for a second from the weak nighttime connection, and when it resumed, the figure was gone. The vines swayed softly, But the message was clear. Someone was out there. Someone who helped me. Someone who watched me. Someone who wasn't done yet. My heart thudded painfully. This wasn't just a revenge story anymore. This was a warning. A new threat. A new player. And I had no idea if they were on my side, or waiting to replace Caden as the next enemy. I barely slept. Even after the mysterious figure vanished from the camera feed, the image stayed burned into my mind. The stillness, the posture, the raised hand. Not threatening, not friendly, just watching. By the time dawn crept over the hills, my nerves felt scraped raw. I got dressed and stepped onto the porch, needing fresh air more than I needed breakfast. The vineyard was quiet. Too quiet. Usually, mornings here were filled with the sounds of workers starting their day, footsteps on gravel, the hum of small tractors, the murmur of early conversations. But today, the silence pressed against me like fog. I walked down the main path toward the west side of the property, the same area where the figure had stood. Part of me hoped I'd find footprints, a dropped object, any clue at all. Part of me hoped I wouldn't. Halfway down the row, I heard footsteps behind me. "Tamsin, wait!" I stiffened. It wasn't my father, wasn't a worker. It was Caden. I turned slowly. He looked wrecked. Clothes wrinkled, hair disheveled, eyes bloodshot like he hadn't slept at all. "Tamsin, please, I just want to talk." My jaw tightened. "There's nothing to talk about." "Yes, there is." His voice cracked. "Everything that happened last night, that recording, the lights. It wasn't me. I swear on my life, I didn't do that. I would never expose myself like that." I stared at him, expression flat. "Good. Because you already exposed yourself in every other way." He winced like the words physically hit him. "Tamsin, listen. Someone set me up. Someone who doesn't want me anywhere near this vineyard." "Congratulations," I said coolly. "You figured out what everyone else already knows." "No, I'm serious." He stepped closer. "There's someone else involved. Someone who's been watching. Someone who—" But before he could finish, my father's voice boomed from behind him. "Caden!" He froze instantly. My father walked down the gravel path, each step heavy with controlled fury. "You shouldn't be here," Dad said. "You are not welcome on this property." Caden swallowed hard. "Sir, please, I just need a minute. Someone sabotaged me." "And you sabotaged years of trust," my father snapped. "Leave, now, before I call the sheriff." Caden looked at me one last time, eyes desperate. "I didn't want to hurt you, Tamsin, I swear. But someone else did." Then he backed away slowly, hands raised in defeat, and walked toward the road. My father stepped between us until Caden was out of sight. Only then did he speak. "You okay?" I nodded, but it wasn't fully true, because Caden's words, the fear in them, lingered like a thorn. Someone set me up. Someone else wanted him gone. Someone who was watching. It matched the unknown texter, matched the figure in the vineyard, and that scared me far more than Caden ever had. Later, my father called a meeting in the office. Papers spread across the desk. Contracts, investor notes, security reports. But I didn't hear half of what he said. My mind kept drifting back to the unknown message. The figure in the vines. The feeling of being watched. "Tamsin?" Dad asked gently. I blinked. "Sorry, what?" He softened his tone. "I know last night was traumatic, but we need to decide how to move forward. Investors will want answers." I nodded, exhaling slowly. "I understand." Mom placed a cup of coffee in front of me. "We'll get through this, together." I forced a smile, but the tension in my chest didn't loosen, because I wasn't just recovering from a breakup. I was navigating a threat, and I didn't know the shape of it yet. After the meeting, I stepped outside to clear my head. The sun had risen fully now, warming the rows of vines in a golden glow. It should have calmed me. Instead, I heard a voice. "Rough night." I spun around. A man stood leaning casually against one of the support posts, hands in his pockets, face half-shadowed by the brim of his hat. But I recognized him instantly. Elias Caro, our nearest neighboring vineyard owner, rival, known for being charming, smooth, and dangerously ambitious. He straightened and gave me a slow, knowing smile. "I heard about the situation last night," he said. "Word travels fast in Napa." My pulse quickened. "How did you hear so fast?" I asked carefully. "Oh, people talk. Investors talk. Staff talk." Elias shrugged. "And Caden? Well, let's just say he wasn't subtle about his plans." A cold knot formed in my stomach. "Did you know about the recording?" I asked. Elias's smile widened, but not kindly. "I know. Many things." My shoulders tensed. "Did you send the message?" His brow lifted slightly. "Message?" The way he said it, too smooth, too controlled, made my skin crawl. "I didn't send anything," he added, "but I did want to check on you. You looked shaken last night." "You were there?" I demanded. He tilted his head, amused. "I'm always nearby." That didn't comfort me at all. Elias took a slow step forward, lowering his voice. "Tamsin, the Velour Vineyard is valuable, powerful. People will do much more than lie or manipulate to get their hands on it." "People like you?" I challenged. He chuckled softly. "People far worse than me." Then he paused, eyes glinting. "And if I were you, I'd be very careful about who you trust next." I crossed my arms. "What are you trying to say?" He held my gaze. "Just this. Caden was a fool. But fools rarely act alone." A chill swept down my spine. "And if someone helped you last night?" Elias added, "You should ask yourself why." He stepped back, tipped his hat, and walked away without another word, leaving me frozen in the middle of the vineyard, realizing something terrifying. This wasn't just about Caden's betrayal. This wasn't random. This wasn't over. Someone wanted something from me. Something bigger than revenge, bigger than humiliation. Something that had begun long before yesterday. And I was standing at the center of a game I didn't know I was playing. Yet. By the time Elias disappeared down the gravel path, my pulse still hadn't returned to normal. Every word he said replayed in my mind. His warning, the chills hidden inside his smile, the implication that last night was only the beginning. People far worse than me. What did he mean? And who exactly was he pointing to? I walked back toward the house, trying to shake off the pressure tightening around my lungs. But something kept pulling me back, something I hadn't fully grasped. Elias knew too much, but he acted like he knew even more. How long had he been watching? How involved was he? Was he the anonymous texter? He denied it, but denial meant nothing in the world I had stepped into. When I reached the porch, my phone buzzed. Another unknown number. My stomach dropped. "You're asking the wrong questions. Keep digging." No greeting, no signature, just a command. My hands went cold. Whoever this was, they were close enough to know exactly what I was thinking. I typed fast. "What do you want from me?" 3 dots appeared, then vanished, then appeared again. Finally, "Answers, and you should want the same. Check the flash drive again. There's more." My breath froze. More? I had watched the files. I clicked every folder. Unless something had been hidden, encrypted, or programmed to appear only after the first viewing. A slow dread crept across my spine. I didn't respond. I just turned around, walked back inside, and headed straight for my room. I locked the door, pulled the flash drive from my pocket, and plugged it back into my laptop. This time, the folder didn't open immediately. Instead, a password prompt popped up. "Enter access code." My eyebrows nodded. I hadn't seen this earlier. I typed the first thing that came to mind. Velour? Incorrect. I tried again. Vineyard. Incorrect. Then suddenly, without touching anything, the cursor moved on its own. Letters appeared, typed automatically. Tamsin. I jerked back from the keyboard. The system accepted it. The folder blinked open. A new subfolder appeared inside. Private logs. My pulse hammered as I clicked it. Inside were 6 video files, each labeled Meeting 001, Meeting 02, Meeting 03, and so on. Hands shaking, I opened the first one. Static flashed. Then the footage steadied. A small office, dim lighting, a desk, 2 people sitting across from each other. One of them, My breath caught. It was Caden. Talking to someone whose face was blurred. A voice distortion masked their identity. But the conversation was unmistakable. Caden. She'll hand them over soon. She trusts me. Blurred voice. Good. The expansion plans are worth more than she realizes. Caden. Just make sure I get my cut. We had an agreement. Blurred voice. You'll get exactly what you deserve. My stomach twisted. Someone hired Caden. Someone partnered with him. Someone who wanted the Vineyard's expansion plans. I clicked meeting O2. Caden looked nervous this time. Caden. You guaranteed me she'd say yes to the proposal. Blurred voice. She did, didn't she? Caden flinched. Caden. Only because I pushed it. The timing felt wrong. Blurred voice. Stop complaining. You got what you wanted. Caden. Did I? Blurred voice. Don't grow a conscience now. A chill slid across my arms. Someone manipulated Caden too. But who? Someone powerful enough to hide their face in recorded video. Someone with access to surveillance. Someone who inserted themselves into my life and Vineyard months ago. I clicked meeting 03. This one was shorter, only 10 seconds long. Caden sat rigid. Blurry figure. Do not fail me. If you do, she won't be the only one who pays for it. Caden paled visibly. The video cut off abruptly. A dull ringing filled my ears. This wasn't just betrayal. This wasn't just manipulation. This was coercion. Threats. Someone above Caden. Someone dangerous. Someone silent. Someone watching. My hands trembled as I moved to open meeting 04, but before I could click it, my phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. Don't watch that one yet. You're not ready. My heart slammed against my ribs. I typed furiously. Who are you? Were you in the Vineyard last night? What do you want with my family? The response came instantly. You'll get your answers when you stop panicking and start thinking. Elias isn't your enemy. Caden wasn't the mastermind. There's someone else. Someone who's been here longer than all of them. My breath shook. Someone else. Someone older, more rooted. Someone connected to the land, the Vineyard, the expansion deal. I typed, tell me who? But the reply was different this time. Slow, measured. Check your father's old partnership files. Look at who he cut ties with 10 years ago. That's where this started. I froze. 10 years ago? I was a teenager. I barely remembered that time. My father had mentioned old business disputes before, people he didn't trust, deals he declined, but he never named them. Why would someone reappear now? Why target me? Why use Caden? And why the surveillance? My thoughts spun wildly until the next text arrived. Move carefully, you're being watched. Not by me, by them. A cold tremor rippled through my entire body. Them. Plural. Not one enemy. Multiple. Working together or separately, I didn't know. But they were watching the Vineyard. Watching the house. Watching me. I stared at the flash drive still glowing beside my laptop. I wasn't dealing with a scorned lover, or a rival Vineyard owner, or a vengeful investor. This was something bigger, stronger, older. And for the first time since Caden's betrayal, I felt truly afraid. Not of losing love, not of humiliation, but of becoming prey. And I realized something terrifying. Whoever was behind this, they didn't want the Vineyard. They wanted control. And I had just stepped straight into their hands.